Alright, welcome everyone to take 2 of Project Cars 2 streaming today. Tried to go live about 30 minutes ago now, and I was having a weird problem with my computer that just needed to get fixed. It would keep throwing me out of the Project Cars window and bringing me back to the desktop without even closing or crashing the game. So I restarted it once or twice, let it stay off for a quick minute, and now I'm jumping back in, and I'm hoping that this time we should have no problems. So let's get right into it. So we're going to look for probably a GT3 session of some sort. I jumped into... Oh, perfect. Oh, this is Le Mans, but there's no car class requirement, so... I don't know. We might try that out and just get into an LMP car. But let's see what other options we have. Hockenheim, touring cars at Hockenheim. GT3 at Nürburgring combined. That's a little bit much, in my opinion. Great track, Nürburgring combined, but only great if you really have like 30 people on it plus, you know, on the grid. Endurance racing sort of thing, but does not seem the case in this instance. So let's see what we got. TC1. Yeah, might as well. I think either touring cars at Hockenheim or Le Mans is going to be our best bet. And I am going to go with Le Mans. Let's see, 1 lap standing. Let's hope that updates. Yes, okay. 30-minute race. Standing start. No mandatory pit. Yes to the formation lap. Okay, so at least we have all Le Mans cars here to pick from. So, let me see. Group C. Could go Group C. But honestly, I don't think that's going to give us the edge that we need. Wow, what a top speed, though, on that XJR9. I was just watching a video yesterday on YouTube of Martin Brundle and his son, Martin Brundle, who obviously won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in this very car. And they both took it around Silverstone for a few laps, and it was cool to see his son get to experience that. So let's see, we got the Nissan. Some great cars in here. Just absolute legends of motorsport. Porsche, Sauber. So these have a great top speed and great acceleration. So it's probably going to be a Group C, ultimately, of some sort. So let's see. Let's go here. Group by class. If we can do that. Yeah, there we are. Group C, GT1. Yeah, these top speeds are not nearly... Oh. Not nearly what the Group C cars are, especially something like the Sauber, the R89. Let's see. So I think we're going to go with the Nissan. Just because I'm have a little more experience with the Nissan. You know what, that is a perfect excuse to jump into the Sauber though, isn't it? Yeah, the Sauber does have a lot faster acceleration as well. It's just a little lighter. Now the question is, do I use the Le Mans variant or just the normal C9? I think it's gonna be the Le Mans variant, except there's not a huge difference in top speed here. Actually, there's no difference in top speed. So I'm gonna go for the normal C9 because the Le Mans variant was obviously engineered in the Group C era, At which point, the back chicanes, the 2 chicanes on the back straight of Le Mans, were not yet implemented. It was just one long back straight, which is kind of terrifying if I think about it, but kind of awesome at the same time. I mean, really getting the car up to speed there. But I do prefer the new layout because the newer layout because it adds that extra element of surprise, I guess. Keeps the drivers on their toes. Makes it more of an active lap instead of a half active lap and a half of a drag strip. So, and you do still get some pretty long straights. So we're gonna take it straight on out here, and oh, that pickup is insane. This is gonna be a blast to drive. I already know it. Definitely does feel lighter than the Nissan. So from what I remember of the Nissan, at least. Just so much power. Let's try to put all that power down onto the road. So I've got 5 minutes left in this session, and then it'll be a 30-minute race here at Le Mans. So 5 minutes is enough for me to do probably... At least yeah, I think it should be enough for me to do one just kind of warm-up lap, and then also to give a go at a actual hot lap for qualifying. In a car like this, you're definitely going to want to have your tires warmed up if you're going for an actual qualifying lap. So that's my strategy here. But wow, what a car. No outside view for this car that I can find, but still gorgeous. Or rather, probably in the session settings in the lobby here. Down to second, pushing it just a little wide. Now, Le Mans has been one of my favorite tracks recently because traditionally, how do I put this? Traditionally, I don't really prefer to drive GT cars around Le Mans. So with Le Mans, tends to be LMP cars, not exclusively, obviously. There's a lot of other tracks that LMP cars do great on, Spa, etc. But that is what it tends to mean for me. And, just Le Mans, obviously. And especially project cars too. Drive a lot of GT3 cars. A lot of touring cars, and it's just nice to have a little break, get to drive some Le Mans prototypes, or in this case, Group C cars, which are definitely more iconic, probably some of the most iconic cars in motorsport history. Wow, rear end getting real loose there. You can see our tire indicators have tire temperature indicators are starting to change color a little bit, shifting from that dark deep blue into a lighter sort of light blue, almost going into a little bit of a turquoise now as they start to warm up and turn into eventually what the same color that my engine health indicator is at, right next to the tire indicator. That lime green, almost lime green. What a car. So much grip, so much downforce.
Big push on this one. Come on, let's make this count.
Definitely really easy to lock up the tires though, especially under heavy braking. So really got to make sure that we use all of the track and set ourselves up as good as we can for the entrances and exits to these corners, because I see even there locking up the rear wheels just a bit, and I really did not push it on that. In my opinion, provided that the car ends up braking like it needs to, I almost prefer that, because it requires less brake input then that way. You know, you can sort of just fine-tune, hit the brake a little, as opposed to having to really mash down on it there to come to a stop. But I don't know if I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because it's the whole coming to a stop part, or rather the slowing down part, that I need to make sure is effective here. My tires seem to be really taking a beating, especially the front left, especially the front tires in general. Very likely thanks to that braking. So I could definitely see us having to make at least a pit stop in this race. There's a good chance of that. But yeah, I don't know, I guess we'll see. So my hope is that, given that we're running no hybrid boost here, obviously it being a Group C car, this is just pure mechanical machinery, and given that we theoretically have a higher top speed than the LMP cars that we'll be racing with today, I'm hoping that in places like the back straight and well, the back straight mainly, and straights like this, hoping that higher top speed is going to help us. I know, I'm climbing pretty quickly up to 190 here. I know that, for example, the Audi e-tron tends to not tap out, but the hybrid boost tends to tap out around 175, 180, depending on how you drive it. So, and then there's obviously a significant drop-off in top speed reaching capabilities past that hybrid boost little period. Really throwing it in here, trying to go for a good qualifying time. Just a few corners left. Shifting all over the place, very much a product of paddle shifters, even though this car did not have them. Very far from it, actually. As you see, big lockup into the corner there, and that sort of lockup really makes me glad that I did in fact choose the non-Le Mans C9, because I can't imagine that the Le Mans version of the C9 brakes any quicker. But yeah, so that effort is good enough to qualify us in 6th place, which is firmly in LMP9 territory. So other than the first two qualifiers, which these guys are probably know what they're doing pretty well, given that they're all the way up there. Other than slots 1 and 2 on the grid, we're basically all the way at slot 6. So overall, going to be a little bit of a tough one, especially with all these LMP9 cars around us. But, well, given that we're the only other Group C car that isn't qualified first and second place, let's hope. But I'm ready. I'm excited. Haven't driven a Group C car in quite a while. Definitely feels a little weird on my wheel right now. for, well, one reason that's sort of comes across in two different ways. And that reason is the steering feels a little light. And the two reasons why my brain interprets that as a weird thing is because, and mind you, that's just kind of how the project car steering is. So I don't necessarily mind it, but the reason my brain interprets that to be slightly strange is because obviously Group C cars, while they were excellent handling cars and some of the fastest race cars around a circuit, they were definitely heavy to steer to an extent. If I'm correct, no power steering. I mean, we're talking, mid 80s. So a little, quite a fair bit heavier than what my G29 is giving me right now. Be super careful to try to avoid that wheel spin off the line. You hear the turbos activate there. Lots of nice engine whines coming from all directions. We're going to take the inside line into the first corner here.
Unlucky, mate. You were taken off the line, but stay focused.
Oh, and we get punted straight off the track. I could have sworn that this, and of course I get a contact warning because of it. Could have sworn that this lobby had a reasonably high barrier of entry driver rating wise, but I suppose there's always one or two, isn't there? Going super wide on the entry to that corner there. Definitely want to cut that apex just a little more and give me a little more lateral room to run wide on the track, especially with these brakes. Now, given that there are now 29 minutes left in the race, we're 1 minute in. Given that this is a 30-minute race, I think that my main concern is really going to be my tires and making sure that I sort of preserve them for as long as I can. So I'm trying to make sure that, I'm not sliding into the braking zones. Good thing is, it's obviously a race, so they are nice and warm from the get-go. But I want to make sure that I really don't lock up the brakes and try not to give it too much or kick the tail end out on the chicanes. Oh, and right after I say that, we run super wide, and as you hear the tires squealing underneath. Though judging from our tire indicators, it looks like it hasn't had too bad an adverse effect on the current condition of our tires, but that's going to be something that we're going to want to watch very closely just to make sure that there are no shenanigans that we're unaware of. And around that corner, kicking out the tail end, I mean, this car just has so much power, raw power at that. And I think during this era of LMP racing, or at the time Group C racing, this era of Le Mans, the biggest challenge was probably just getting as much downforce as they could to the car, and that's why you see the big old 80s 90s looking rear wings. Not a bad line taken through that corner there. Got to watch out for the grass. Almost kicked us out. Almost lost it there on the downshift. Just took that corner in way too high a gear in third. Should have taken it in second. Lesson learned for next lap. I have to say though, with all the power, it's such a driver's car. I mean, it's just a pleasure to drive. It's like it has a personality of its own almost, and I mean that in a good way. It really has character, as a car. And when you hear about all of the, or you even in a sim, you drive some of the more legendary, storied race cars from all classes in history. That seems to be the recurring element that really makes a car great. It's got character. Even this morning, I jumped into, like I said, for the first time in probably about 3 or 4 months. Ooh, and hopefully, can we take fourth? Almost bringing up the inside, cut the corner just a little bit, and he's spun. So we have fourth. Fourth out of 12, not a bad place on the grid, but as far as Group C goes, and we run off, that's always been a problem corner of mine, is keeping it under control there. We lose fourth, we're going to lose fifth, and hopefully we can get in front of the sixth car. Not quite. That puts us into seventh. Now there is still a good amount of time left in this race, though, so especially with pretty much all three of those, from what I can tell, were LMP9. So they're going to run out of that boost pressure relatively soon. Hopefully I can start to catch up here on the straights. And I already am closing the gap between myself and Mr. Richard in front of me in 6th place. Oh, huge spin from an LMP9 from the 5th. And so both of the other two cars were involved there in that incident. And I managed to take Mr. Richard right in front of me as well. So back into 4th and back into somewhat reasonable contention. Definitely need to, for the chicanes and then in the slower corners, definitely need to drop it into 2nd so that I have that power on exit. So we're going to try that right now. Mid corner gear shift there. Nice to have it in 3rd going in for the stability. And then assuming that you're not giving it too many revs, you can drop it into 2nd, get the power on exit midway through the corner. Coming around the back end of the circuit here. Gonna brake as heavily as we can without locking up those wheels, and that is a challenge in this car. That's going to be something that I'm going to look into, because I would like to use this car in a future race. And it looks like the 3rd place podium contender in the LMP9, he's in an LMP9, in front of us, just had maybe some sort of incident. So hopefully I can capitalize on that. These cars just have so much acceleration too. Oh geez, and off the track. Okay, so maybe not capitalizing on that. And we have suspension damage from that. Sorry about that, guy. I did cost him a place there. That suspension damage I really was not expecting to be quite as bad as it is. I guess the damage factor is a little higher on this track, or not on this track, in this session, in this lobby. So damage multiplier, rather, should I say. So that suspension damage over the curbs is really upsetting me. But elsewhere it doesn't seem too bad. So I don't know, I'm going to see if maybe I can play it safe. Yeah, I really don't think so. Given there's a 30-minute race with which we still have 22 minutes, it almost feels as though it's making itself worse. One of the coolest things about this track is the pit entry with rumble strip curbs on each side. So it looks like maybe an LMP9 car or two in the pits. Oh, I don't think this is my pit crew. It sure is not. But this is. Okay. Always pay attention to what livery you're running, kids, because otherwise you might make a mistake like that. I'm not sure what's going on here, because we're getting refueled when really we needed a repair, and I'm not sure that a repair is even going on. So the repair is happening after the fuel. So okay, so we're doing the best we can here. It looks like we have another entry to the pits, and the two of us are about to be passed by, or just were passed by, a GT1 car as well.
Clear, off you go.
So one GT1 in the pits, one GT1 passing the GT1 in the pits, as well as myself. And a quick pit stop for him. Not exactly sure why he would need to pit with that quick a stop, but he's already out. So lucky we got in front of him. That puts us in 9th of 11. Really trying to hug these corners here. It's so it is a little more difficult a car to drive because while it gives you a lot to work with, you do sort of have to dance it around. But those are the most fun cars to drive, are they not? I always like to think so. Downshifting through that corner just to get a little more acceleration on exit, to get a little more responsiveness turning in, and powering up the first of the what is now 3 back straights. Beautiful. You know, it really does have a character of its own, and you know, that really is what makes this car special. You know, if you throw it into a corner the right way, it almost sort of drives itself through the corner, and you just kind of have to guide it, whether it's a little to the left, a little to the right, whatever it may be. You just kind of make sure that it doesn't lose, you know, that you don't lose it. But it's definitely not a car that you can just sort of go in and sort of tell it where to go. It's, you know, it sort of has to be within, not within what it can do, but you know, it definitely will put its foot down and tell you no, because you know, as 80s race cars tend to have the ability to do. And just like that, speaking of 80s race cars, we spin out a little into the outfield, into the sand. Hopefully the sand doesn't completely wreck our traction with these tires, but that remains to be seen, seeing as we are on a pretty non-violent straight right now. Just some light curves. And here in the braking zone, just giving it a little early on the brakes, just so that I know we're okay. That corner always gets me because you know, it might just be the Project Cars 2 physics, but you know, I watch people race LMP cars in iRacing all day long, and whether it's LMP, Group C, GT1, any sort of Le Mans race car, I have not yet thus far successfully been able to take that corner quite as fast as everybody else seems to. So like I said, maybe it's just the Project Cars 2 physics, which is in and of itself a sort of hotly debated topic amongst sim racing scholars. Personally, I don't mind the physics much. I've touched on this before, but I don't mind the physics. I think they're good. You know, especially compared to some of the other stuff that's out there. Definitely simulator enough for my tastes. Definitely, I would almost say even a little more difficult than a lot of other systems, a lot of other engines. But not a bad thing necessarily. However, and this is my theory on the whole physics situation of Project Cars. My theory is that the out-of-the-box tunes that are included on the cars, of which it should be noted that the Sauber is running an out-of-the-box tune, so not all of the cars, should I say, but a lot of the cars, especially a lot of the newer cars, less mechanical cars, the out-of-the-box tune on a lot of them is just horrible. It's just really bad. And so that makes a huge difference, you know, when you're trying to drive a car well, and it's not necessarily letting you, you know. I will say the out-of-the-box tune on this Sauber does not feel bad at all. I'm not sure why I was given a warning for a race control penalty there. Usually for, you know, taking a corner too fast and getting a little loose, cutting lines, etc., going off track. I didn't really cut any corners or anything there, so remains to be seen. Oh, you know, sometimes I think if you go from this outside lane, which everybody does, I think sometimes that counts it. It tends to do it more on the last corner there than this one. But yeah, strange. Sometimes I think it does it here too. But that's okay. I'm going to take my line. Yeah, see, there we are. And it is Le Mans. I mean, people, you know, it's the whole...
15 minutes to go.
Okay, I don't know why we got 2 because I just went back into my lane, but I don't know. Anyway, especially on a lot of the GT3 cars, that's what a lot of people drive. Some of the touring cars, you know, if that's your main experience with the game and you haven't done anything with the tunes for those, you're going to have a bad time. Almost guaranteed. Because they're rough without a tune, I'm going to be honest. A lot of them, you know, I mean, tuning is a very subjective subject matter, but there's some elements of a tune that it's just like, okay, you need this, you know, you need the ability to turn in well, you need the ability to not spin out on every corner just because it's a front engine rear wheel drive car, you know. So I think that's a lot of people's gripe with project cars as well, is that the tunes are just really bad out of the box, and that really kind of hinders the experience, especially considering that Project Cars 2 is one of the sims on the market that tends to appeal to, mind you, that is a little wide there, very wide there actually, pulling a Sebastian Vettel, going out onto the grass, coming back in, and maintaining our position, but with more than a few second gap. So we are definitely good there, but yeah, especially if you consider that Project Cars 2 is, mind you, not necessarily simcade. Some people would argue that it is, you know, really extreme purists, but also at the same time, a lot of very reputable racers within the sim community love it, you know, and spend a lot of time on it. I spend probably most of my time on it because I don't have ACC yet. So for GT3 racing, at least, it's definitely one of the better options out there, in my opinion. I also don't yet have Forza Motorsport 7, and I don't have Gran Turismo Sport. And while those are, you know, simcade kind of options, I guess you could say, I think most people would agree that Project Cars, even just barely, but is not simcade and would fall under the simulator category. But it is one of the few, you know, it's not a super hardcore sim, but it is one of the few sort of, you know, sims in general that's not a simcade game. That gave it too much there, cut the corner on the inside, but not a bad exit overall. But a lot of people, you know, when you consider the market space that Project Cars occupies, a lot of people, it's their first sim, you know, their first kind of serious sim. And so, you know, for people to just jump into the game and just jump into a car and try to get good lap times, it's, you know, it's just not going to happen. You're gonna be, if you're lucky, 3 seconds slower than everyone else. Or rather, should I say, if you're really good and you're lucky, you'll be 3 seconds slower than the leader. At best. Like if you're really good and you really put in a good amount of laps and that's the best you're gonna get out of it. right, got a little bit of a hazard in the road here with this guy stopped. Great car, but sorry, gonna have to overtake. That puts us into 6th place. So not too bad considering where we were, considering our incidents, and we've got a back marker here in the grass in a GT1 P1 McLaren, or F1 McLaren, my bad. Letting him right back up on the inside here. And like I said, this isn't one of my better corners, so decided to back him off and give him the space there, but I'm sure that I will be taking him soon. If nothing else, assuming I keep the pace and there aren't any major incidents, I will definitely take him on the straights and hopefully gain a pretty good lead from that sector,
10 minutes to go.
Sort of middle sector. So 2/3 of the way through the race now. Only 10 minutes left of the 30-minute race. Oh, and he has spun out once again. I say once again, I assume he spun out last time, and that's why he was in a similar situation, just about stopped on at the middle of the track. Though I should say that that's a very shallow portion of the track, so it's sort of all the middle of the track at that point in the track. But you know, managed to make it work. It was a slow corner, so it wasn't too hard to not run into him. Now I really want to focus on this first sector. I feel like that was a lot better through those first couple corners there, the first 3. And I really want to make sure that I brake as much as I need to. There we go. Take that little chicane properly, because I always mess that up, and that's just a really stupid thing to mess up. So going definitely wider than I'd probably be comfortable with on the entry to the straight, the first straight. There. Definitely need to get closer to that apex. Let's say that's probably the key to that corner. And there we are, just throwing it in. Rear end getting loose, powering out. And not bad, all things considered. Now our best lap is down 6/10, almost 7/10 of a second now. So we are getting better at lapping this track in this car. Our braking zones are definitely getting better too, and the braking in general. Giving it just enough so that we're not sliding, but we are stopping. Good balance. And I'd say overall now, you know, a second faster than our fastest lap. I'd say we're now finding the pace to where if the race were to restart under similar conditions, I think it'd be a lot more competitive between myself as well as the rest of those LMP9 cars. But, you know, apples and oranges in a way. And going far wide off the track almost completely, barely keeping it on the tarmac. Going into the sand just a little bit. Lost about 6/10, 7/10 of a second there. But we're still a good 3/10 solidly ahead of our previous best lap. So not bad, all things considered. Really give it the power here. Rear end getting a little loose on exit. Gotta watch out for that grass. Good running wide on that corner once again. I really should figure that corner out sometime soon. That might be kind of a nonchalant way to put it, but yeah, that's sort of where my mentality is. Now we have gained, it is worth noting, we have gotten back to a split time of over a 1.2 second difference between our best lap. So whatever time we lost there, that 6/10 of a second that we lost, we gained around, wow, we've gained about really getting kind of squirrely there. We've gained almost 1.5 seconds, even after losing that. So that means that we've got about 2 seconds of faster lap in us. Or rather, should I say what will now be about 2.5 seconds, or rather about 0.5 seconds from what is now our best lap, which was the lap that we just put in. Turned in way too early there. Distracted myself with the non-existent lap counter. That's another place that I definitely have some room to improve when it comes to, you know, sim racing. Is I'm relatively new to sim racing in general. Oh, this is a back marker. Okay. Relatively new to sim racing in general. Did Gran Turismo for a little bit, a couple years back. But especially as far as modern day sim racing goes, or realistic sims in general that aren't Simcade, you know, there's definitely some learning that I had to do. So I'm now running a Logitech G29 wheel. That's the PlayStation version. Because it has a couple more just little extra buttons and encoders and such that I find really useful, including a plus and minus, a large plus and minus towards the bottom of the wheel that is perfect for brake bias, back and forth, fuel mix. Alright, oh, it's a back marker, okay. Get what we can. 4 minutes left in the race. Let's see if we can't catch up to this traffic in front of us here. Looks like there might have been a near incident up on the next part of the track, and we lock up majorly under braking there. Really gotta give it a little more, a little bit earlier. And this car is all about throttle control in the lower gears, so you really got to be careful. Even after a spin, especially if you know went off track, off the tarmac, your wheels are going to be even slipperier than they normally are. And if you look at my tires right now, we've only got 3 minutes left in the session, so nothing that we're going to have to pit for, but they're definitely feeling it, those front tires, and I think that's why I'm starting to lose some considerable brake performance here. Now I should be able to pass the 5th place car here, and I take him on the inside. I don't know if he's just giving up or he's being a gentleman, but that is good news. And it looks like the 4th place LMP9 in front of me might be taking a little bit of a slow time around the S-bends here, so hopefully we can capitalize on that and get a finish of 4th, which obviously just outside of podium. But if I can't get podium, I'll go for 4th, because if you can't be a big fish, then or if you can't be a big fish in a big pond, I'd rather be a big fish in the midfield, if that makes sense. So yeah, so he is going into the pit, the LMP9, so we will be able to take him here. With 2 minutes left in the race, and that'll give us 4th place. I would say that there's a very small chance, that almost a non-existent chance, unless he makes a mistake, that I would be able to pass the LMP2 car in front of me, but otherwise, chances are I will be finishing this race in 4th overall, which likely 2nd or 3rd. Actually, yeah, so it would be 2nd in Group C, which means that there's either a Group C car behind me or a Group C car that has retired, because there were 3 of us to start. Really getting off track there. And these front tires have just had it. Now, mind you, when I did pull it into the pits, We did not change the tires, so these are the tires I started the race on, and you can really hear him just squealing, screaming every corner. Having to take these corners much slower than I was originally, and somewhat failing at that adaptation. And if I thought that, hey, okay, hold on.